This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it in me.
Stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
It's Tuesday and time to get rolling again. Time to get ready to go out the door. By the way, looking to tomorrow, these storm warnings continue to come in. Michigan in the bullseye. So says one headline. For big snow tomorrow, starting tomorrow, could run through Thursday. Could make traveling late Wednesday, Thursday. First part of Friday could be hectic, could be problematic, could be a mess. Just so you know. So if you have any plans for those 3 days traveling, just giving you a heads up. Not much you can do about it. It's the thing we call winter around here. So do your best. On the program today, Chris Farrell will be here, the Director of Research and Investigations for Judicial Watch. New records indicating the State Department asked Hillary Clinton about emails back in July 2014. We'll also have Congressman Bill Huizenga on the program. Apparently he might endorse Marco Rubio. And energy expert Pat Michaels is director of the Center for Study of Science at the Cato Institute. He said there's a big, big difference between these climate models and the reality of what's really happening. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, the big stories of the day, of course, the elections, the battle with Apple, but we will start with the latest on the shootings in Kalamazoo, just to keep you up to breast on what has happened there. Jason Dalton admitted taking people's lives to investigators after he was arrested. 6 dead, 2 others injured, 1 critically injured. 14-year-old girl still clinging to life, but only by a thread, we're told. So Dalton showed up for his arraignment, and if anybody in Kalamazoo or elsewhere was hoping for some answers, well, they came up a little bit short. Clip 1, go.
That the defendant did murder Mary Lou Nye. If guilty of this offense, it is a felony punishable by a sentence of life imprisonment. Count 9 alleges that on February 20, 2016, in the city of Kalamazoo County, state of Michigan, that the defendant did murder Richard Smith. With regard to Bob, is there anything you wish to tell the court at this time concerning your connections with the community?
I would prefer just to remain silent.
Very good.
I prefer to remain silent is all we got out of Jason Dalton. Meanwhile, Jeff Gettings, the Kalamazoo County prosecutor, said police don't know yet what prompted Dalton to go on the alleged shooting spree. Alleged shooting spree. It's funny how we write these things, isn't it? To appease attorneys and so forth. Well, for the allegedly dead folks, not many answers either. Here's Jeff Gettings, clip 2, go.
No one understands why it happened, and that adds to the fear and the sorrow and all of it that goes along with this. It'll take some time. This is a very strong community. We will get past this. We will recover from this. We will get back to where we were before this happened. It's just going to take a while to do that.
Some of you will get back to that, and, well, some people's lives are altered forever. So there you go. And one more little bit of strangeness from that evening. Uber passenger Matt Mellon says he called the police to report an erratic driver more than an hour. More than an hour before authorities say the driver began shooting people at random. He said he's happy to be safe. Here he is. Take 3.
He introduced himself as a different name than what Jason was on that comes up for Uber. We got maybe a mile from my house. He got a telephone call, and after that telephone call, he started driving really erratically. We were running stop signs. We were kind of driving through medians, driving through the lawn, speeding along, and then finally, once he came to a stop, I jumped out of the car and ran away, and he wouldn't stop. He just kind of kept looking at me like, well, don't you want to get a ride to your friend's house? And I was like, well, yeah, but I want to get there alive, you know? I'm upset because I tried contacting Uber afterwards, after I talked to the police, saying that we needed to get this guy off the road. Pretty scary ordeal, especially to be so closely involved with it, but I'm just happy I'm safe.
Yeah, I'd say. What a strange series of events. Makes you wonder what that phone call was, doesn't it? Makes you wonder what the whole phone call was about. I suppose that'll come to light at some point, because obviously this guy is a key witness to the erratic behavior prior to the shootings. So he will be in court. His life is altered to a great degree for a period of time. In the battle to unlock the dead terrorist's cell phone from the San Bernardino terrorist attack in December, Microsoft founder Bill Gates has broken with other Silicon Valley giants by backing the FBI in its battle with Apple. In an interview with the Financial Times published yesterday, Gates said a court order requiring Apple to help the FBI access a work phone belonging to gunman Saeed Farouk was, quote, a specific case where the government is asking for access to information. They're not asking for some general thing. They're asking for a particular case. I would not characterize it that way. It seems to me Apple is being ordered by the government to create a new software system, a new software program so that the government can have access, basically have a master key. That's the way I understand it. Gates, however, went on to compare the FBI's request to accessing bank and telephone records. However, he added that the government must be subject to rules about when it can access such information. Yeah, we already have those rules. It's called the Fifth Amendment. You know, well, the guy's dead. I understand that, but I guarantee you, you go down this road and give him the key. You give them the key, and they will use it. Gates went on to say, I hope that we have that debate so that the safeguards are built and so people do not opt, and this will be country by country. To say it is better that the government does not have access to any information, Gates said. The San Bernardino County issued iPhone 5C was used by Farouk, who with his wife, Tef Sheen Malik, killed 14 people at a Christmas party in December before they died in a gun battle with police. The government says it was a terrorist attack, at least inspired by the likes of ISIS. The couple physically destroyed 2 personal phones so completely that the FBI has been unable to recover any information from them. And that battle goes on. 3 days left until a decision has to be made at the end of the week. 14 after on this Tuesday, we're going to hear from Vice President Joe Biden on placing Supreme Court justices during an election year. It's enlightening, and it's up next on The Steve Gruber Show.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is The Steve Gruber Show.
I'm gonna tell my tale. Come on. Come on. I give a listen, 'cause I was born lonely down by.
All righty, it is 18 after on a Tuesday. So much work to get to today. Again, Congressman Bill Huizenga will be here today. Chris Farrell, the Director of Research and Investigations for Judicial Watch, will be joining me here in just a few minutes. And later, we're going to talk to Pat Michaels, an expert on energy and the director for the Center for the Study of Science, excuse me, at the Cato Institute. We're going to talk about the difference between climate models and the actual reality on the ground of what has actually happened. Pretty key, wouldn't you say? Now shifting our direction, shifting your focus to the campaigns. Ted Cruz gave the boot to his communications director, a guy who's been all over TV for the last few weeks, gave a boot to him for putting another disingenuous statement out there. Cruz is getting a reputation for doing some things that are, and I'm not saying it's deserved, so hold your sharp tongues. I'm saying he's getting a reputation for doing things that are a little shady. All right, I didn't give him the reputation. He earned it himself, or his crew did. All right? So everybody just get relaxed. And I had somebody actually accuse me of taking a cheap shot at Trump yesterday for saying that he wasn't well-liked. Gee, maybe you could check the polling numbers and see that two people in this race are very unliked. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump overall. Well, you cheap shot at Donald Trump. Yeah, by telling you the truth? Gee. I'm going to refer to Harry Truman on that one. I'm not giving you hell. I'm just telling you the truth, and you think it's hell. By the way, speaking of the election year, obviously one of the, if not the pivotal comment or conversation now is about the vacant seat of Antonin Scalia. Scalia's unexpected death here a week and a half ago have put an extra tizzy into the frenzied election year energy already out there. And everybody's saying, well, they should, the Democrats are saying you must, have hearings if Obama puts up a nominee. And yet the Democrats over many, many years held a very different opinion. As far back as 1960, we found transcripts and moves by the Democrats to prevent Republican presidents from having nominees in election years. And of course, they've had a much different tune here recently. Well, that was, let me think, different. Different, yeah, that's different than now because now we should get our nominee. Yeah, okay. Let me give you an example. We're going to go back to 1992 on this from C-SPAN. C-SPAN, this was found, which is good fun here. But Vice President Joe Biden, then a senator from the state of Delaware, gave a speech on the Senate floor about a vacancy on the Supreme Court. This is in June of 1992. Of course, it is an election year. And what did Joe Biden think about appointments during an election year? Go ahead and roll that tape, clip 9.
As a result, it is my view that if a Supreme Court justice resigns tomorrow or within the next several weeks, or resigns at the end of the summer, President Bush should consider following the practice of a majority of his predecessors and not name a nominee until after the November election is completed. The Senate, too, Mr. President, must consider how it would respond to a Supreme Court vacancy that would occur in the full throes of an election year. It is my view that if the President goes the way of Presidents Fillmore and Johnson and presses an election year nomination, the Senate Judiciary Committee should seriously consider not scheduling confirmation hearings on the nomination until after the political campaign season is over. And I sadly predict, Mr. President, that this is going to be one of the bitterest, dirtiest presidential campaigns we will have seen in modern times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, Mr. President, after having uttered these words, some will criticize such a decision and say there was nothing more than an attempt to save a seat on the court in hopes that a Democrat will be permitted to fill it. But that would not be our intention, Mr. President, if that were the course we were to choose as a Senate, to not consider holding hearings until after the election. Instead, it would be our pragmatic conclusion that once the political season is underway, and it is, action on a Supreme Court nomination must be put off until after the election campaign is over.
That's enough.
That is what is...
We are in the full throes of an election year, after, the campaigns get started, so on and so forth. There it is. But it's different now because I think it's pretty safe to say we are in the full throes. I think it'd be pretty safe to say we are in the full throes of an election year. Let's go to the hotline. Steve on the line to discuss a little bit more about the politics. Steve, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, and thank you for the privilege of coming on. Marco Rubio Rhino or not. Because everything I hear out of his mouth and the way he looks at amnesty and all the stuff to go with it, he smells like a rhino to me.
Well, he's the one guy that got language into a bill here recently that will probably be the death of Obamacare. Does that place him back into the conservative column?
Well, what about
you see, here's the problem.
I'll
Hold
give you
on.
that, but what about the amnesty end of it?
Well, the amnesty thing, you disagree with the guy on one point. There is no perfect candidate.
I didn't say I'm not voting for him. We're picking him apart here.
Well, my point being is I think that the people are, and not saying you, but people are too critical. Well, he's wrong about this, he's wrong about that. All right, then, what is the plan? Are we going to kick 12 million people out like Trump and Cruz, well, Trump mostly suggests? Is that really a feasible idea? I think it's probably not. You need to get rid of the criminals, but you've got to find a way where you can actually operate and make it workable, don't you think?
What I believe is if somebody's here and they don't have a record and they only have a record of paying taxes and working hard, then we should talk about it. But if they've had a problem, they need to go.
You sound like a rhino, Stevie. All right, I got to run. Just having some good fun with you. Back in
Covering Michigan and the world from his bunker below the bridge. Here is Steve Gruber.
Generals gathered in their masses.
All right, welcome to it. It is Tuesday here in the program. And like I said with Chris Farrell there, the gross tonnage of stories that are out there every single day. Most of it would be a lead story any given day. Our next conversation is about the growing threat of ISIS unleashing a weapon of mass destruction because of the things that they're picking up, either through direct combat or on the black market. You might remember they have a whole pile of Abrams tanks now, U.S.-made, A1A tanks, 28 at least in one cache they got. Dakota Wood, who served America for 2 decades in the U.S. Marine Corps, is a senior research fellow for defense programs at the Heritage Foundation, joining us now. Dakota, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so as I go back and I did some research back on some of the things that ISIS already has. I mean, having these tanks is pretty significant. They sent those to the Syrian front and battled with troops there and had some significant victories. But that would be a very minor thing compared to some of the weapons they're trying to get their hands on or may already have. Is that correct?
Yes. Anytime we talk about a weapon of mass destruction, the prize obviously is a nuclear weapon, but you can have chemical or biological weapons as well, and they come in various forms and various levels of lethality.
So when you talk about chemical or biological weapons, is there a certain thing that might be more available and more readily available to these people than other things?
Yeah, absolutely. When you biological, very, very difficult. It's a very fragile germ or bug. Usually, just general weather, sunlight, temperature, that kind of stuff. So it's very difficult to weaponize that. But on the chemical side, industrial chemicals like chlorine or solvents, anything that's caustic, if it's used against a person. We're concerned sometimes about detergents in the kitchen, or the laundry room. But on an industrial scale, cleaners, solvents, chlorine that's used in many manufacturing processes, those things can be used as weapons and have a pretty good effect against people in a battle space.
And even what we would consider old-fashioned chemical weapons like mustard gas, obviously used in Iraq and so forth, can still have damaging and debilitating effects as well, even though the fact most people don't use it, correct?
Right, yeah. I mean, that's a century old. It goes back to World War I when you first saw it on the battlefields of Europe. So it's old technology, but still lethal. I mean, people can still manufacture that. But you really don't have to go through this laborious kind of state-sponsored process to make stuff like that if you can just get industrial chemicals. So you've got petroleum industry and other manufacturing sectors in Syria and Iraq. And these kinds of chemicals are usually kept in storage in warehouses. If it comes under the control of the Islamic State, they can take that and use it in various kinds of improvised explosive devices, and again have a devastating effect on unprotected civilian populations in particular.
And some of those populations that we should talk about include Yemen, Turkey, Libya, and other places where ISIS are getting good footholds where they have not previously been, unchecked previously. They're now becoming a force. And Yemen, obviously, on the southern border of Saudi Arabia is of critical concern. Libya, we've heard a lot about. But Turkey, a member of NATO now, having a foothold for ISIS, these should all be very concerning to the people that watch world security issues.
Yeah, if you look at the map of Syria and where the fighting is going, a lot of it is pushing up toward the northern edge there that borders Turkey, with the Kurds that are fighting to maintain a hold on their homeland. But ISIS is up there, al-Nusra is up there, and these civil wars and the turmoil and the chaos spills over those borders, and Turkey is now seeing the results of that fighting. So it's like a cancer. You hear the phrase metastasizing a lot, but like a cancer spreads throughout a body. This is what we're seeing with these terror groups, and groups like ISIS going up into Turkey. And then the fear is the French have seen in Paris and Germany has seen in some of their towns that these groups become violent in locations throughout Europe. And, we're concerned about that coming into the United States.
So when you look at a place like Turkey, and that's probably the one that's probably most problematic and disconcerting to me, it's a member of NATO. It's been a fairly stable Arab state for a very long time, but it's being destabilized not just by potential terrorists coming in and infiltrating, but the ongoing skirmishes along the frontier with Russia and so forth. It seems that Turkey, for whatever reason, has found itself under a lot of pressure from some different angles.
For several years, Erdogan, who is the prime minister the president of Turkey, has made a series of horrible decisions. Previous governments were very secular. He has clearly taken it down a religious path. His relationships with Syria have always been bad. They're very strained with Israel. And now with Russia coming in to support Bashar al-Assad and really assisting him militarily to retain his hold on power in portions of Syria, that's brought Turkey in potential conflict with Russia. So bad policy decisions in Turkey, yet Turkey remains a member of Europe and certainly is NATO, as you pointed out. And so there is this growing concern about a clash between Turkey and Russia. Does that constitute a violation of Article 5 of the NATO agreement, in which case, Turkey could call on support from fellow member states? And so far, the member states have shown a great reluctance to promise that they would come to the support of Turkey.
Yeah, the question is, if Turkey calls and says, hey, we need your help, then what?
Yeah, exactly. It's, who is at fault, right? So if Turkey is creating its own problems, then NATO members have interpreted that that's not really a solid rationale. NATO was meant that if the Soviet Union came from Eastern Europe into Western Europe, an attack on one member would constitute an attack on all. But this very messy situation and a lot of provocative actions on the part of Turkey could create an environment or a clash that NATO would probably be pretty skeptical about. But it's a concern, and it's something the United States should be paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Dakota, I greatly appreciate the time. Dakota Wood from the Heritage Foundation, thank you for your service back in the day.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
There you have it. Back in a moment on a Tuesday here on the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
And welcome back to it, my friends. It's Tuesday here on the program. Thanks for dialing it in. I appreciate your support and look forward to having you here for the second hour. Coming up later this hour in just a few minutes, Congressman Bill Huizenga will be joining me here on the program. Marco Rubio will be joining the congressman for a West Michigan campaign rally. Gee, I wonder what that could be about. Why would Marco Rubio be with Bill Huizenga? We better talk about that. Also today, Ambassador Terry Miller champions free markets as director of two of the Heritage Foundation's key research centers. He'll be in studio with me, as will be Anthony B. Kim, who researches international economic issues for the Heritage Foundation. We're going to talk about the economics of the day and what we have going forward and what we can expect. That's all happening here in the second hour. And coming up later, we'll have Pat Michaels, director of the Center for the Study of Science at the Cato Institute. And we're going to be talking about how climate models almost have no similarity to the reality on the ground. They put out these models and say, this is what's going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, well, you never hear about it again. It gets filed away, I suppose. Filed away. A little update on Flint now and the water situation there. You know, and it's still baffling to me what you would have to believe, how dark you would have to be in your soul, how much emptiness there would have to be in your heart to actually believe some of the things that are being said in the media, on social media, and all over out there. That this notion that somehow Republicans, specifically Governor Rick Snyder, would have to have consciously targeted poor black kids to poison them to save a few dollars. I mean, if you actually believe that, you have mental problems. I mean, let me just make it that simple. If you really believe that Governor Snyder and his band of colleagues there at the State House actually said, well, you know, they're poor kids, they're black kids, it doesn't matter. Just poison them, it doesn't really matter. Really? I mean, the question is, what's wrong with you for believing that? Not what's wrong with state government, not what took so long to fix the problem in Flint, not why did the EPA not do their job, why did Flint break federal law? Those are not the questions. The question is actually what's wrong with you to actually believe such a thing about people that are your neighbors, that are, you know, for those of you on the left, here's a little news flash for you. Republicans are people too, as are conservatives. They may not believe the same things you do, but they have children and grandchildren. And from what I can tell, people on the right have a lot bigger hearts, in my experience, than anybody else. Speaking of Flint, a research team led by a University of Michigan Flint professor estimates that Flint has more than 8,000 lead service lines. Dr. Marty Kaufman announced the findings at a news conference at City Hall, standing alongside Mayor Karen Weaver. It's clip 5. Go.
We identified 4,376 locations with lead pipes in the city of Flint. Based on additional analysis of the data, including those areas for which records were incomplete, our team estimates an additional 4,000 plus service lines in the city also contain lead. So ultimately, what our research supports is an estimate of at least 8,000 homes and businesses in the city of Flint being fed with lead pipes. We believe this research is a key step toward identifying and removing the problem of lead pipes in the city.
Today marks another important step toward our Fast Start plan to get the lead lines out of our water system. The people of Flint have suffered long enough. This is a public health emergency, and this is an economic crisis. People won't buy homes or even feel comfortable in our restaurants until every lead service line is removed. And this is an important step toward returning confidence in government. And I won't rest until every service line is removed, and the people of Flint deserve no less.
Hold on just one.
Are we going to return confidence in government by replacing those lead lines? I think that's highly unlikely. Just for the record, you know, you look at places like Antrim County, rural Antrim County in Michigan, Mansalona, places like that, where there's a toxic plume under the ground, and wells have been contaminated by this toxic plume for years, and it continues to spread at about 300 meters per year, now threatening new wells that have been put in to replace the old ones that were already toxic. The estimated cost to clean up that problem here a few years ago was $30 million. And the people of Antrim County, well, that's too expensive. We're not going to do that. The state told Antrim County, we're not going to do that. It's too expensive. But we're going to spend $250 million in Flint, or $500 million, or $1 billion if Candace Miller has her way. Seems kind of disingenuous, doesn't it? Seems kind of like a double standard a bit. So again, back to the notion that somehow politicians sat around and said, well, you know, they're just poor black kids. It doesn't really matter. Poison them. Let's just go with that. Is such abject nonsense. It's sickening that anybody would actually think that way, or that they would say that, or that anybody would believe that sort of nonsense. Is common sense so absent from the conversation? Is it that people would actually believe that politicians would target a whole group of people because they were a poor minority group? In part, not even in whole, in part. Newsflash, white people live in Flint too, as do Asian people and Native Americans and all sorts of folks. But that's never what the conversation is, now is it? Not when Al Sharpton comes to town, now is it? Yes, there's work to be done. But if Flint had followed the federal law of treating that water to prevent the corrosion from happening, which is required by federal, you have to treat the water for corrosive nature, for it to stop it from doing that to the pipes. You have to put control agents in for corrosion. It's federal law since at least 1991. You have to have a written plan in place to go along with your corrosion control efforts. That's been federal law since at least 1991. And the EPA, if they find that those plans and those additives are not being used, after 30 days is required by federal law to take over. None of these things happened. Incompetence at the local level, indifference at the state and federal level. By the way, the governor is set to release more emails on that sometime very soon. Internal emails from the Snyder administration on the ongoing problems in Flint. But let's be sensible of what the problems are. It's an old system, like so many around the state and around the country. It was compromised because those in charge did not follow the rules, and as a result, it has been damaged. Yes, we have to fix it. But let's just skip the vitriol, could we, please? Tuesday on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Welcome to it. It's Tuesday here in the program. Right to our next guest now, Congressman Bill Huizenga from the West Side. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Sorry, I got a little bit of a head cold, but it hasn't dampened my enthusiasm what we're doing today.
That's right. Where are you?
I am at home right now in Zealand.
All right, so you're getting prepared to get snowed in here the next couple of days. Good.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, we haven't had much winter, but it'll come in fits and spurts.
Yeah, we don't get out of it altogether, though. We've had winters like this in the past from time to time. But I hear, I was looking at my invitation list here, and I see that Marco Rubio is coming to town to join Congressman Bill Huizenga, and I thought to myself, now why would he do that? Is somebody running for president or something? What's going on here? And I thought to myself, so I figured I better get you on the phone. So what's the story, Congressman?
Well, it's going to be picking up here in Michigan. You know, we've gotten through South Carolina and leading up to Super Tuesday, you're going to just see more and more folks stopping by here in Michigan. Ours will be the week after Super Tuesday, our primary, so March 8th. And we're hoping that this is going to be the first of a couple of visits. And trust me, if you're a political geek in Michigan, you'll have a week of nirvana. It'll be a lot of people here in a very short period of time, and then poof, they'll be gone. But they'll be on to other races.
This is why I have this job. I took this job in the middle of 2012 because I'm exactly what you said, a political geek. Yeah, so that covers for me. So, is this an endorsement? What is this?
Yeah, no, I have endorsed Marco Rubio. I did that in the beginning of December, and I have agreed to be one of his state co-chairs, along with Congressman John Molinar from over in the Saginaw area, and very pleased that Marco is coming into West Michigan, into the Grand Rapids area, into Kentwood, actually into my district, and I went and spent a little time out in Iowa. We've got some really solid Dutch conservative areas out in Iowa where Rubio did very, very well, and we said, hey, you know what? We think that that message, that positive conservative vision for the future, will do well here in West Michigan as well. And so we convinced him to make a stop, and we're very pleased that he's coming.
And when is this going to happen, and can people get into the event? Tell me about that.
Yeah, they absolutely can. It's going to be tonight. Doors open at 6:30. Marco will be on stage at 7:30. You do need to pre-register, though, on the website, either marcorubio.com/Michigan, or I've got a link on my website as well, huizengaforcongress.com. And unfortunately, people are not going to be able to get in just showing up at the door. You need to register online and be able to have that to get in. But we've got a great crowd coming. We got a couple of thousand people that have already registered already, and we're pleased that we're getting a great response here in West Michigan.
So, okay, looking at the polls, though, you know what the truth is. The truth is that Donald Trump continues to roll. The last poll I saw yesterday from the Detroit News actually shows Trump leading here in Michigan as well. But obviously, Marco's consolation prize, if you will, at least second place in South Carolina, certainly buoying his campaign. Problems with the Cruz campaign. Dismissing a communications director there might leave an opening for Marco Rubio. What's it going to take for him to, rise to the top, and what's it going to take to beat Donald Trump, frankly?
Sure. I think some of that is, frankly, Steve, consolidation. We still have a number of candidates, whether it's Ben Carson, John Kasich. We saw, obviously, Jeb Bush bow out. But those folks are going to need to exit, I think, because, in fact, I was just watching something on Fox News. A professor from Iowa, Grove City College, who was looking at this with Trump and looking at sort of what is the cap that Donald Trump has in his numbers. And it shows his research shows that both Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz beat Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump loses to her, and that there's some sort of cap that's in there. So, hey, people are going to have to go through and figure out really are they voting for Trump because they're just ticked and mad, or are they looking for solutions and a solution to what the problem is in Washington D.C. And I don't believe that Donald Trump is a conservative. I just don't. I think he has been on all sides of the issues at various times, whether it's life, whether it's marriage. You name it, he's kind of been all over the place, depending on what he's needed to be at that time. So,
fair enough. Now let me jump in before we run too short on time here. But Marco Rubio has been knocked for being too far left, especially on the Gang of Eight immigration. It's the big knock against him from conservatives, from those who say, listen, he's just a rhino. He's willing to give amnesty to all these people. That's the problem with Marco, and you hear the same as I do. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that. Much as he has said, or Paul Ryan and others have said, which is, look, this is an issue we need to tackle. We cannot just ignore it. There was maybe a naive, optimistic hope that at one point this administration was actually interested in coming up with solutions. That has become evident over the last few years, a number of years, that it is just all about politics for them. And so when there was an attempt, Raul Labrador, one of the most conservative members in the House of Representatives, who's an immigration lawyer, actually from Puerto Rico originally. He's out in Idaho. He was a part of a group in the House that was trying to figure out a solution. He came to the same conclusion where it's like, look, the administration isn't actually serious about tackling this. So let's walk away, and which they have and which they did, and it was the right thing to do. You're going to need to tackle this with a different administration and a different president.
So Marco Rubio, you think that he has the right plan, because it is the big knock, as you well know, and I guess that's all the time we have. Again, where is the event for tonight, and how do people find it if they're interested in seeing Marco Rubio here in Michigan today?
Yep, marcorubio.com/Michigan. It's in Kentwood at Lax Industries, or they can go to my website, huizengaforcongress.com. We have a link as well.
And that starts at 6:30. Marco's going to be on the stage about 7:30 if he's a prompt politician. Congressman, I always appreciate...
he's pretty prompt, so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, he's always been real good. I've seen him a couple of times. Congressman, I greatly appreciate your time. Bill Huizenga with us. We'll talk to you very soon.
All right, sounds good.
It's Tuesday here on the program. We'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show, American Values with Midwestern Common Sense.
All right, welcome back to it. It is Tuesday here on the Steve Gruber Show. You know, when I was growing up, you used to hear the term, well, it's a free country, do what you want. But it seems over the course of my lifetime, America is less free in a variety of ways than it was when I was growing up. It seems that every time they being elected officials, pass a law, it chips away a little bit at our freedom. But nothing chips away at our freedom more than the economics of it all. Now, I'm not driven by money. A lot of people are not. The nice thing about money, though, it gives you options, gives you opportunities to try different things. It's called economic freedom. And if you don't have that economic freedom, your choices are more limited. You have less opportunities and less ways to be involved in the country, I suppose. Our next guest is Ambassador Terry Miller. He champions free markets as the director of 2 of the Heritage Foundation's key research centers, data analysis and trade and economics. Ambassador, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
So when you talk about economic freedom, obviously, in this day and age, we've just come through a pretty severe recession here a few years ago. Some say the economy has recovered. I think that's a lot of hoo-ha. When I know that there are 95 million Americans not working, and they try to tell me the unemployment rate's 4.9%, I'm not real good with math, but I'm smart enough to realize that if you have 95 million Americans not working, your unemployment rate is significantly higher than 4.9%. I also know that something else we talked about growing up was inflation. Every time you turn on Walter Cronkite, you heard about inflation and what was going on. They never talk about that anymore. And yet I know the cost of living goes up year after year after year, as everybody else does. Let's talk about some of these things.
Sure, Steve. I think you're absolutely right. We had this terrible recession, and normally by this time, the United States would be back on a very positive growth path. We should be having probably 3 to 4% annual growth in our economy. Instead, we're down closer to 1%. And what's happened is that the government has intervened in ways that have made this recession worse and made our recovery slower. We're missing probably about 6 million jobs in this country that we would have expected to have had by this point. And why is that the case? Well, it's because the government has intervened to shut down the financial system. They've intervened to make the cost of energy more expensive. They've intervened in the healthcare area to make that more expensive. Everything the government in Washington touches seems to go south.
Yeah, my father used to say that the government's really good at a couple of things. It's really good at building big machines to break other big machines from other people. And, they're good at making war. They're good at something. But running businesses, no. Managing projects, no. If you think the government's good at healthcare, you can always look at the VA. If you think the government's good at, taking care of people, you can look at the Native Americans and all the work that they've done there. So, no, government as a whole doesn't work when it comes to economic freedom. Now, you talk about the different restrictions out there. The thing that concerns me most, and maybe this is a part of the problem, I look at like the EPA, regulation after regulation after regulation, and if you don't follow the regulations, they show up at your business or your home. They have a badge, and they actually have guns. These are bureaucrats, and it's the regulation nation. It's killing us, is it not?
It's a real problem that we are ceding power to these administrative agencies. We're supposed to be living in a democracy here, but when our elected representatives don't do their job, when they allow these administrative bureaucrats working remotely in Washington to determine who gets to do what on their land. We just had a terrible crisis out west about land use, and there's a lot of fault to go around in that story. But one of the things that's clear is that the government owns so much and controls so much of the land in this country. And that means that individual Americans have to jump through hoops in order to try to do something productive. That's not the way we became the world's richest and greatest country.
And speaking of the government land ownership, I've done some research on this. I don't see where the government can actually, the federal government that is, can actually own land. I don't see a provision for it anywhere in our founding documents or the Constitution. I don't see how they arrived at this conclusion.
Well, there's a lot the government seems to be doing these days that doesn't show up in the Constitution anywhere. What we've had is just an expansion over time of the power of the government in Washington, and that's one of the things that makes this election coming up so important. We've got a vacancy on the Supreme Court now. We lost one of the real champions of freedom for Americans in Justice Scalia, and I'm really concerned about what happens going forward.
Now, one of these things, I just saw this article, and it kind of fits into what we're talking about here. I saw this article about the EPA and Volkswagen. As you know, Volkswagen's in a big fight over their emissions and so forth for gaming the system, I suppose. But it says in this article that the Environmental Protection Agency may have asked Volkswagen to build electric vehicles and dictate how many electric vehicles are built, and a network of charging stations across the United States to atone, if you will, for their violations of the Clean Air Act and so forth. But in effect, if the government is dictating to a car company what kind of cars they have to build and what kind of recharging stations they have to build in order to come to a deal, isn't that in effect nationalizing, well, in this case, a foreign car company?
Well, absolutely. One of my colleagues in the Center for Data Analysis just completed a study of the effect of CAFE standards, which I assume all of your listeners are very familiar with. And because of these fuel economy standards for cars, the average price of a new car now is about $4,000 higher than we would otherwise have expected it to be. That's money that comes right out of the pockets of consumers. And it's not just people buying new cars. That makes used cars more expensive, too.
Makes all cars more expensive.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so, and who gets hurt the most? When you talk about economic freedom, and the Heritage Foundation, by the way, puts out this index each year of economic freedom, promoting economic opportunity and prosperity. I have the book here in front of me that people can get a copy of. But the people that get hurt the most are those that can least afford it. They're the ones at the bottom of the income ladder, correct?
Absolutely. People have this idea that when the government gets involved in something, it does it to help those who have the least power or who are the poorest in our society. But we look at countries around the world and also in our own country here in the United States. And what we find is that when government intervenes in anything, it does so on behalf of the people who already have the power politically and economically. In other words, the rich get richer, the powerful get more powerful. There's a word for it. We call it cronyism. And it's a disease that's really infected Washington.
And it's infected both sides. That is a bipartisan illness. No question. It infects people on both sides of the aisle. It seems to me when you see congressmen go off to Washington, you know, for their first term, and, you know, a term or two later they come back and they're wealthy or on their way to being wealthy. How many people have you seen that had a net worth of $100,000 that come back in a few years are worth millions of dollars? I mean, it's a strange phenomenon, but it's consistent.
Well, there's corruption all over the world, and the United States had been relatively free of that compared to other countries, but I'm afraid we're catching up fast, and nothing erodes confidence in a democracy or the ability of the common people to get ahead than an increase in corruption.
No question. All right, we're on with Ambassador Terry Miller here from the Heritage Foundation. We're talking about the Index of Economic Freedom 2016. Now, we're going to tell you when we come back after the break where America stacks up to other countries around the world, why other countries maybe have more economic freedom than you and I do. What has changed in the world recently that makes some other countries that you might be surprised by to hear, and you go, really? That country has more economic freedom? You go, frightening, eh? It's 41 after on a Tuesday. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
All right, and welcome back to it. We're with Ambassador Terry Miller from the Heritage Foundation. Talking about economic freedom, the Heritage Foundation puts out this Index of Economic Freedom each year. They partner with the Wall Street Journal to do this. And I mean, this is a book. I mean, this is an encyclopedia. It's I don't know, at least 500 pages long. And Ambassador, as we look at what's going on in the world, we were joking a little bit about economic freedom in the break there, but you know, it's frightening to me when I see 25,000 people or whatever show up for a Bernie Sanders rally demanding economic freedom when socialism puts people in chains. I mean, it's a historical fact.
Well, there seems to be a lot of ignorance in the country about the real impact of socialism. We've seen just any kind of a modest understanding of history. We had socialism of the National Socialist ilk in Nazi Germany. That was a catastrophe. We had socialism of the Soviet Union type in Russia. That's been a catastrophe. We've seen what happened in Russia, Cambodia. There's evidence all over the world that socialism immiserates populations. People live in poverty. They lose all their rights, economic and political. It's just a terrible way to organize a government. We can't afford to go there as a country.
I'm going to just take I'm going to take away the first thing you said there. There seems to be a lot of ignorance in the country. Yeah, on all sorts of levels. I'll agree with you on that. Honestly, for me, to even see that many people turn out for a Bernie Sanders rally is obscene based on what I know. I mean, Adam Smith, to me, is the most important figure in early American history for a lot of reasons, for the economic system that he devised and designed and created the freedom, because America, this country, has lifted more people out of poverty and done more good and created more great things in communication, transportation, medication, and all of these fields, and lifted it up from free markets and free people and free minds. And yet every day there are these people that think they're smarter than these classically educated folks that put this country together. It's appalling to me.
And the problem is the rest of the world has truly gotten the message. We're looking at economic freedom in 186 countries around the world. And the good news is that in a great many of those countries, economic freedom is increasing and increasing rapidly. And that has so many positive benefits. Countries have higher economic growth rates. They become richer. They have better health care. They have better education systems. The free market system that the United States used to be the champion of around the world has lifted literally hundreds of millions of people out of poverty around the world in the last 3 decades. That's an incredible success story. And now as these other countries are booming as a result of adopting more economic freedom, the U.S. is going in just the opposite direction. In 8 of the last 10 years, we've lost economic freedom here.
So who leads the list?
Well, Hong Kong leads the list. And there's going to be a huge battle economically between Hong Kong and mainland China to see which system prevails over there. And it matters to 1.5 billion people living in China at this point. Other countries that do very well are countries like Australia and New Zealand. Canada, just here to our north, actually outranks the United States now in economic freedom. I don't know whether to be outraged by that or encouraged because they're a friendly country, but I was just shocked when I saw those results.
The Canadians have outpaced us, and I've been to New Zealand many times. Clean, green, wonderful place. So they embrace free markets, and that's the way it works there as well. But you wouldn't think that these places, Canada, in many respects, has a lot of socialism there, but it seems that America, in the programs we're putting in place, entitlement programs, which apparently every kid under 25 believes they're entitled to just about everything, a bit facetious there, but not entirely. Canada, how in the world would they have gotten in front of us?
Well, they got their budget under control, but they've also put in place a whole bunch of business-friendly regulations. They've lightened up on their control of the economy. You don't find them clamping down on pipelines for oil. That's happening here, not in Canada. So it is true they're not perfect. No country is, but Canada has certainly been moving in the right direction.
So as you look down the road, though, for example, this election in November of 2016 is critical to where freedom, not just economic freedom, but freedom in general, where it's going to go, lies in the balance, I believe.
Well, it's critical for a lot of reasons. Certainly the policies that a president will bring and try to implement. In the last few years, at least, we've had a Congress that has said no to many of the worst proposals coming out of the White House here. The Supreme Court is also a huge issue now. The balance there will make a big difference in where we go economically in the future. This is certainly one of the most important elections of my lifetime, and people are going to have to think really hard about what it is that made America great and prosperous, and we need to get back to that.
Give me an idea here, Ambassador. This is obviously a complex. It's a textbook, really. It's a college-level textbook. But for people that want to know, or they want to get at least the cliff notes of the 2016 Index of Economic Freedom, where can they find it?
They can find it at heritage.org. We have the complete text online. It's free. You can download it. You can use all our data. It's publicly available. We don't hide anything. We love for people to use the data and come to their own conclusions. Americans are a smart people, and I really have a lot of confidence they'll do the right thing if they know the facts.
If you knew the facts about how every regulation is handcuffing the small business, the big business. And the last thing I'm going to give you, do businesses in America pay the proper tax rate? We've only got about 20 seconds. I'd like to get into this deeper, but about 20 seconds.
America has the highest corporate tax rate of any developed country in the world. That's really all you need to know. Our rate's about 35%. Other countries are down at 10 or 15%.
And that's what shackles economic freedom. Ambassador Terry Miller, I appreciate your time here from the Heritage Foundation. It's called the 2016 Index of Economic Freedom. You can find it online, just like he said. You can also listen to the podcast at stevegruber.com. We'll be right back.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses. All right. Come on now. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it off.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
And welcome to it. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Tuesday. Greatly appreciate having you on board. You can join the conversation directly on the free-for-all Common Sense hotline, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. We're going to have the Marita Noon Campaign 2016 here in a minute. Nobody cares about climate change. At least the Canadians don't seem too much. Not kidding you. We're going to talk about that. Also ahead, energy expert Pat Michaels will be here. Speaking of climate change, we're going to look at the models and what has been predicted and what the actual outcome has been. This is an important comparison, side-by-side comparison. Because you get to understand that no matter what they say, when it doesn't fit, they come up with another alternate explanation. And there you go. And there you go. All right, so trying to get through some other things that we haven't touched on here in the last few days and so far this week. Let's start with the Brexit. The Brexit is a big deal. And normally, again, as we go through the gross tonnage of things that are going on every day, the Brexit would be a really big deal, if not for so many other things going on, because what the Brexit is a vote to decide whether or not the United Kingdom, England, stays in the European Union or exit. That's why they call it the Brexit, Britain's exit, if you will. And if they leave, that'll be the end of the EU. There will be no chance of going back or redoing it. It'll be the end of this experiment, which in large part has failed. Economically and as far as stability goes, the arguments over the refugees swarming into Europe, the borders that have no border guards in places like Germany and France and so forth. All of these experiments will go to the wayside. Prime Minister David Cameron says that if Britons vote to leave the EU in June, that'll be it. Take clip 6. Go.
Now, Mr. Speaker, this is a vital decision for the future of our country, and I believe we should also be clear that it is a final decision. An idea has been put forward that if the country votes to leave, we could have a secondary negotiation and perhaps another referendum. Mr. Speaker, I won't dwell on the irony that some people who want to vote to leave apparently want to use a leave vote to remain, but such an approach... But such an approach... Such an approach also ignores more profound points about democracy, diplomacy and legality. This is a straight democratic decision, staying in or leaving, and no government can ignore that.
Don't you wish they did that in America? Just start hooting on them, beating on the tables, yelling, hollering, carrying on. Well, I mean, they do some of that, but, I think it would be more fun if we did it that way. Speaking of American politics now, Donald Trump in the pole position and leading the pack into the next 8 contests, including today. Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz on Monday fired communications director Rick Tyler. Now, Rick Tyler, you've probably seen him all over the news because he's everywhere. And they fired him after his top spokesman promoted a video that wrongly depicted Florida Senator Marco Rubio as trash-talking the Bible. The Texas senator announced that he has asked for the resignation. He did that at a press conference Monday. Clip 7. Go.
Staffer deleted the tweet, apologized, and pulled it down, although I've spent this morning investigating what happened. And this morning, I asked for Rick Tyler's resignation. I had made clear in this campaign that we will conduct this campaign with the very highest standards of integrity. That has been how we've conducted it from day one. It is why when other campaigns attack us personally, impugn my integrity or my character, I don't respond in kind. None of you have heard me throw the kind of insults at Marco Rubio that he throws at me every single day. If other candidates choose to go into the gutter, we will not do the same. Rick Tyler's a good man. This was a grave error of judgment. It turned out the news story he sent around was false, but I'll tell you, even if it was true, we are not a campaign that is going to question the faith of another candidate.
Not going to question the faith of another candidate. Yeah. And this is just more difficulty for the Cruz campaign. They've been accused of some dirty tricks thus far. And so having this happen is, it's not helpful, that's for sure, as they're trying to get some traction. Marco Rubio, of course, came in second place in South Carolina by a smidge ahead of Ted Cruz. So finishing in third place is still finishing in third place, no matter how close it was. So you're having a difficult week to begin with. And it doesn't seem that he can get much traction. And it's unusual where, Donald Trump picks up, more than half of the evangelical vote in South Carolina? So these are problematic issues for the Cruz campaign. Meanwhile, John Kasich, who some say should, recuse himself from the race along with Ben Carson, should just say enough is enough and let the other three just fight it out. He says he's in for the long run, Ohio Governor John Kasich, and he had a chance to talk about a bill that he signed affecting Planned Parenthood. Listen to this, clip 8.
Look, I think, unfortunately, for however those who support it feel, I think it's discredited itself. But I want to make one thing clear to you. Are you kidding me? We have robust women's health funding in Ohio. And then I read something about the issue of infantile death, okay? And I got my people in a room and I said, okay, folks, we see that we have a problem here in our state. Infant mortality is too darn high. What are we doing? Well, something's coming in the budget. I said, I don't care about the budget. The budget means nothing. I want a plan tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, immediately. Anyhow, John Kasich hanging in there, and his strategy is pretty clear. The reason he was in Michigan last week will be back again. The reason Marco Rubio is in Michigan. John Kasich's plan runs through the upper Midwest to start with. Now, the problem with that is it comes after Super Tuesday, It comes after other states have gone. It's late in the game for John Kasich to try to find that kind of traction. Or maybe he is playing for an opportunity to be a running mate. He is the one guy who pretty much has avoided the wrath of Donald Trump. Maybe Kasich is the balancing act on the Trump ticket, potentially. Something to consider anyway. To bring an adult to the room, if you will, as some people put it. 14 after on a Tuesday. We'll be right back.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
Well, I don't know why I came here tonight. I got the feeling that something ain't right. I'm so scared in case I fall off my chair. And I'm wondering how I'll get down the stairs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here
all right, welcome to it. 18 after on this Tuesday. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Yeah, you hear a lot about climate change from one or two sources. You hear about it all the time. But people are frustrated now. Tom Steyer, Tom Steyer, the billionaire from California, spent $75 million in the midterms of 2014 to talk about climate change. Got him nowhere. Well, he must apparently be spending money with Barack Obama, too, because he wants to spend his even more of his fortune this time around. Marita Noon here to discuss the campaign 2016. Marita, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a treat to be with you.
All right. Glad to have you here. I just was reading. It's interesting that, I was reading this survey from Canada. Half of Canadians don't believe that climate change has anything to do with what people do. Climate change, we can pretty much accept climate change is here. I know because we have the Great Lakes here, caused by climate change. But long before anybody got here to create that problem, the fact of the matter is most people are not too concerned about it. They don't think that it's, I guess we don't think the sky is falling. Is that a fair way to put it?
That is a fair way to put it, yes. Despite the biggest, most expensive, and most extensive public relations campaign in the history of the world, people are not concerned about climate change. It repeatedly shows up at the bottom of every survey that is taken in this election cycle. What should we be concerned about? And when given a list of things, national security and the economy repeatedly come out on top, and climate change comes out on the bottom. But yet, as you pointed out, President Obama continues to go out and say that this is the biggest crisis facing America. And Bernie Sanders, in his victory speech in New Hampshire, said the same thing, that this is the biggest problem facing America. And, it's interesting when you look at who is out there saying this and realizing that, as you pointed out, Tom Steyer, who spent $75 million in the 2014 midterms, says he's going to, quote unquote, open his wallet even wider this time around.
And the rich get richer. Maybe he should be talking about income inequality. Maybe that's how he should spend his time, because he's worth billions of dollars. And maybe he should open his wallet and give it to people less fortunate, not squander it on a political campaign. Just an idea.
Yeah, just an idea. And he does stand to benefit financially from the green energy policies that he owns companies that benefit from this.
Well, big companies that benefit greatly from this, from government contracts and money and so forth. And maybe that's what his play is here. Maybe his play is to hook up with Michael Bloomberg so that these two idiots can, get on the campaign trail together, which I hope they do, by the way. Because that would certainly
wouldn't
help.
That be fun?
Actually, yeah, Bloomberg I think would be great on the campaign trail, just because he would be entertaining to me. But okay,
he'd give you great fodder.
Well, certainly he would. He's just another liberal Democrat. He can call himself whatever he wants, but Michael Bloomberg is a very nanny state liberal, no question about it. And I think that Tom Steyer is the same. all of these folks want to tell you and I and everybody else how we should conduct ourselves, how we should live, what we can use, how much water we can use, what kind of soda we can use, what kind of light bulbs we can use in our house, how much water we can use when we take a shower, and so on and so on. It's maddening.
But they're wrong. It's a good day to remind everybody that it was 4 years ago today that President Obama piously said, we cannot drill our way to $2 a gallon gasoline.
Wrong. How long ago did he say that? How long ago did he say that?
4 years ago today.
Well, he was
4 years ago today.
He was right, because we can drill ourselves to $1.39.
Yeah, well, the national average today, according to AAA, is $1.70 a gallon, and we've been under nationally. We've been under $2 a gallon for 25 days in a row.
Well, and it's going to go on for a while because of the American energy renaissance, fueled, of course, by fracking and our ability to have. See, America always leads the world when it comes to when you have an opportunity to have a free market. Whether it's transportation, communication, medication, all of these things, medicine and all of these things, we lead the way. And now it's energy. We lead the way because we basically outsmart the world, don't we?
We do. We do that exactly. I mean, when you think about it, when you think of the great inventions, the great innovations that have really changed the world, the vast majority of them have come from America.
No question.
And fracking, hydraulic fracturing, and horizontal drilling were combined by American ingenuity, not government investment. And those two things, the combination of horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing, are what has created this new era of American energy abundance.
All right. Well, again, it's the American energy renaissance. America was blessed. This piece of real estate that we call the lower 48 anyhow, and Hawaii and Alaska to chip on top of that. But we have more timber, more farmland, more water, more energy resources than any single piece of real estate in the world, I believe. We're greatly blessed, as long as we are not handcuffed to policies that don't work from the left. I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word.
Well, I appreciate that, because we do have that great abundance, as you said, and we need to realize that as we're in this election cycle, who wants to develop that and who wants to squash it.
There you go. Marita Noon, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
There you have it. All right. Still to come, we're going to talk more about this with energy expert Pat Michaels, the director of the Center for the Study of Science at the Cato Institute, will be joining us here in a moment to talk about climate models and actual facts. Straight ahead on the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Welcome back to it. It's 45 after. Hey, Rick, you want to come in? You want to talk about it? No, of course not. The regional sales guy comes in, wants to have some serious, then he runs off. So it is. All right, welcome back to it. They want to come in and, give you a hard time about something. Want to put him on the air? Be a stand-up guy? Nothing. Typical suit. For all of you out there that don't have a microphone and had a chance to challenge a suit like that, it is good fun. All right, there you have it. All right, wrapping up today, let's catch up a little bit on Jason Dalton. We will probably never know what broke in this gentleman's head. Seriously, I mean, what went wrong? What went wrong in his mind, and what went so dark in his heart that it was appropriate somehow to begin shooting innocent people over the weekend in Kalamazoo? 6 died, 1 in grievous condition. Let's start with the arraignment. We're going to listen to a little bit of the play-by-play from yesterday. At the arraignment, here is the judge talking to Jason Dalton, and then his response. Clip 1, go.
That the defendant did murder Mary Lou Nye. Guilty of this offense is a felony punishable by a sentence of life imprisonment. Count 9 alleges that on February 20, 2016, in the city of Kalamazoo, Kalamazoo County, state of Michigan, that the defendant did murder Richard Smith. With regard to Bob, is there anything you wish to tell the court at this time concerning your connections with the community?
I would prefer just to remain silent.
Very good.
Yeah, I would prefer just remain silent. Okay. Jeff Gettings, the prosecutor there, the one that's going to take this case forward, he says police just have no idea. No idea. You know, they're still going through all of his stuff, the investigation, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, this is just a broken person who decided to inflict pain upon others, I believe. Clip 2. Take Jeff Gettings. Go.
No one understands why it happened, and that adds to the fear and the sorrow and all of it that goes along with this. It'll take some time. This is a very strong community. We will get past this. We will recover from this. We will get back to where we were before this happened. It's just going to take a while to do that.
All right, there you have that. The Common Sense Free-for-All hotline is open, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Jennifer touching base with us on this Tuesday. Jennifer, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. You know, I've had a lot of concern about this election, and I hope I'm not deviating from the subject, but I would ask the people to take one very strong, good look at Ted Cruz, because to me, he's never received the credit that he deserves. He has been fighting this administration for a very long time, longer than Marco Rubio and Donald Trump, and he's been by himself. And to me, I do believe that he's the best of the lot. I believe when he says that the first day of his inauguration, that he will rescind all of the things that Obama has put in place. So I just ask the voters out there, please, before you place your ballot, take one good look and really give him a fair shot.
Let me ask you this. So you say that he's been battling the Obama administration, which is pretty true.
Yes, sir.
But he also seems to battle a lot of other folks. And he doesn't seem to have a lot of, you know, in fairness, now I'm going to be accused of using a Donald Trump talking point because when I mentioned this, but when it's accurate, it's accurate. He has not one single endorsement from one of his Senate colleagues. Isn't that a bit unusual?
It might be a bit unusual, but you have to wonder what their feelings are toward the reasons that they feel this way toward him. Maybe it's because he is such a staunch believer in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and they don't like being questioned about their loyalties.
No, well, in fairness, then, you would look at somebody like Mike Lee. You know, he's a hardcore, you know, Tea Party conservative.
Mike Lee, too.
Of course you do. But he has not endorsed Ted Cruz either. You see, so, I mean, even birds of a feather have not flocked at Ted Cruz's side. I'm only asking why, and I know that I get chipped away at, you know, by people that are Trump supporters. Well, you know, you're using Trump's talking points, whatever. The fact of the matter is he's not supported. You like Donald Trump? Okay.
I don't trust Marco Rubio because of the group of 8.
That's one
bothers
issue.
me.
So that one issue is enough for you to say that's troublesome for you. I mean, that's fair enough. If Rubio, let me ask you this, Jennifer. If Rubio is your nominee, does it bother you enough to not vote for him?
Oh, no. I have to. I have no option. There's no way on God's green earth that I would vote for a habitual liar and a communist.
Fair enough. Jennifer, thank you very much. And you can decide which one's the habitual liar and which one's the communist. You can go ahead and sort that out. What do you got there, Alex? All right. The hotline number, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Roger, let's go to it. Roger on the hotline to finish things up. Roger, welcome to it.
Yes, how you all doing?
Doing well. We only got about 30 seconds.
Okay, I agree with that lady, 100%. When a man has his, how am I say it? When a guy knows, like Mr. Cruz, he knows what needs to be done for the growth of this nation, and it has to happen because Even though some of his colleagues maybe don't support him, well, what do they support? They don't support the U.S. Constitution like Mr. Cruz does. He's a believer in it, and he wants to use it to guide this nation. And it's not a living, breathing document. It's more than that.
Well, there you go.
That's what his colleagues don't like. They want to change their Constitution.
Roger, I appreciate your time. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to it. Got the hotline juiced up a little bit right now. The free-for-all common sense hotline, 888-900-9966. Listening to WKMI Kalamazoo. We have Phil checking in. Phil, welcome to it.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to come on your show.
My pleasure.
I had 2 points. My first point was about Ted Cruz, and I'll try to keep this short and brief. Have you ever seen the show Green Acres?
Sure.
On the show Green Acres, you have an individual called Mr. Haney.
Yes.
And if you remember, Mr. Haney is the kind of guy that would cheat, steal, lie, and change his story on the fly to fit his benefit. That, to me, I look at Mr. Haney and I look at Ted Cruz and I see one and the same.
So
same posture.
You think Ted Cruz is a little shifty then?
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, it's really obvious to me. I'm a Donald Trump supporter, and probably the only reason I'm a Donald Trump supporter is, well, there's probably two. He's a businessman, and we do not need lawyers running this country anymore as politicians. And the second thing is his comment about cleaning the swamp really shook up D.C., and I think they're really concerned about that, and I support that. We do need to clean the swamp.
But the last caller pointed out that Ted Cruz has rolled up his sleeves and battled this administration from the first day he got there. That's pretty true. Wouldn't you agree with that?
You know what? Don't know. Honestly, I don't know that he may have openly supported that, but I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I just do not trust Ted Cruz. After what I've seen in his campaign manager that he just fired and what they're doing, that points a finger at a direct reflection of an individual and how he drives his or orchestrates his support.
You're not a believer. Well, Phil, I can live with that, and I appreciate you calling in from down there in WKMI land.
Thanks.
There you have it. Phil checking in, everybody. You have the opportunity to do that every day as well. The free-for-all common sense hotline, 888-900-9966. We like voices from all over the state. We'll talk about that again tomorrow right here on The Steve Gruber Show.